Disabilities Act. We know that not very many of our sidewalks are traversable for those with disabilities or mobility issues. So how can we think about all of these different funding sources that are out there to be able to get creative with how we are going to repair this?
Thank you. Ms. Callaway.
The first question is, we have been unable to find out how $120 million is already spent and doesn't complete the restoration. So I can't even answer that question because to date, we have not received a bank statement, if you will, that shows that that money has been depleted to such a level that the restoration is not complete. Now, as a council person, the last restoration contract that I approved, it was under the assumption that it would complete all restoration. And so now in doing the research to date, no oversight. Supposed to be oversighted by the state of Michigan, Eric Pocan. There's supposed to be he's over it, haven't been able to get the answer. So I'm sure we can be creative, but it's going to be hard to be creative to any philanthropic, the Mott Foundation or any of those other organizations when you can't explain to them how you could get so much money and not get the work done. So how about I just put a pin in that one, and hopefully we'll be able to get some answers.
Thank you. Urban decay is the face of much of Flint, with abandoned properties and burned out buildings littering its streets. Blight reigns with graffiti, illegal dumpings, unmowed grass, unswept streets, clogged street drains, and crumbling structures. These problems are symptomatic not only of apathy, but of abandoned industries, a declining economic base, and a declining population. Tell us what can be done to effectively address blight in the short term, and what must be done to conquer urban decay and blight moving forward. Ms. Galloway?
So I'm proud to say, just spoke to Michael Freeman today, director over the land bank, and the Robert T. Longway apartments are due to be demolished this winter. It is a winter demolition. So the RFP has gone out. The RFP is going to require whoever gets the demolition of that to demolish that by February of 2022. So that's good news. Short term, working with partners, the land bank. The land bank owns a lot of our blighted properties. Did recently just learn, thankful to Norma and her communication, even with Miss Alley, that Crime Stoppers has the ability for you to call in tips on blight, those that are dumping in our community, those that are coming into our community, and if you call Crime Stoppers, you are able, and there's a process, and we'll make sure that I'm sure you'll probably hear more about that, but I didn't know that. And you can actually call in, report it, whether it's anonymous or not, and if it leads to an arrest, you will be compensated for that. But in order for us to clean up blight, we all have to be responsible. We all have to say something when we see something. We have to make sure that we are deterring. Help our neighbors. Everybody that lives in a house, whether they're renting or owning, some of them are owning for the first time, so they don't really understand the upkeep. So we can help in our community, whether I'm mowing the lawn of a land bank property, and so we've got to be creative, but working with the land bank, with our county commissioners. Our county commissioners are over the land bank. The land bank is a purview under the county commissioners. So doing a better job at working with our partners to make sure that we eliminate that blight.
I think in the short term, I know especially during this campaign cycle, you've seen so many people, myself included, doing all sorts of cleanups, which is great, But how are we going to keep that momentum going? We know that we can't have this huge cleanup every single weekend. We need to make sure that we're taking our own responsibility and saying, ooh, I'm not going to throw this Doritos bag outside of my window on my way down Door Highway. We need to make sure that we're doing those little things within ourselves first, because we also need to make sure that we, especially as leaders within our community, are exemplifying what we want to see within our community. That being said, we also need to make sure that we're engaging our residents who have a special physical and mental health concerns that make it a really, really big deal for them to be able to get out and mow their lawn. I know there's so many people in my neighborhood in particular, they have joint issues, and managing a lawnmower is just too much for them, and they physically cannot do it. So being able to extend courtesy to the other, whatever that other may be, or whoever that other may be, and say, hey, do you need some help? Hey, how can I help you out? And extending that neighborliness. As far as the long-term aspect of it, we need to make sure that we have transparency within the land bank process as far as who gets a house, who doesn't get a house, and why didn't you get a house if you applied for one. We need that transparency within that process so that we know why people aren't becoming homeowners who desperately want to be homeowners, and why other people are getting homes and we've never heard of them before. So we need to make sure that we're able to have that transparency and working together with the county commissioners and with the land bank to make sure that that process is clear cut for everybody who wants to own a house.
Thank you. Yellow and white signs freely and illegally cover light posts throughout the 7th Ward and city, soliciting the purchase of homes and cars or promoting get-rich schemes. These signs are not only an eyesore contributing to blight, but they take advantage of the ill-informed and economically disadvantaged. If no ordinance exists condemning these forms of blight and economic exploitation, will you as a council member support creating one?
I would, absolutely, especially because it's just like predatory lending. That's a federally regulated aspect. We can absolutely regulate things like that. And even if there is something that is that is an ordinance right now, I apologize, I don't know every single ordinance in this city because we have hundreds of them, thousands of them, but being able to step up and say, this does not belong here, I am going to take the responsibility and I'm going to take this sign and I'm going to put it in the garbage.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Galloway.
Yes, so I'm currently working with our Chief Legal Officer, Angela Wheeler, about that very thing. So I've gone throughout the community, taking pictures of those signs, and the other piece of that, though, is enforcement. It's not just that there's blighted. We have to have enforcement. Right now in our blight department, I'm sad to say that the entire blight department is turned over. Raul Garcia, first person gone in blight. The person that, anybody that's in this room that has ever called Raul Garcia, you call Raul Garcia and he'll be at your house 7 in the morning, 8 in the morning, weekends, it didn't matter. The whole blight department is turned over. But in addition to that, who is enforcing these ordinances? Even once we have them, if we don't have an enforcement officer that is able to do it, that is able to take it to court, that we actually have teeth in, we see reoccurring things. I think it's a great idea to remove them, but eventually the residents, we pay taxes to make sure that these things are enforced. And so I am working with, like I said, Attorney Wheeler, but also making sure that we find out from the administration who's enforcing this and what does that look like? Where does the community call? We need to include all of that in the ordinance.
Thank you. An ordinance has been proposed to confiscate vehicles driven by reckless drivers disrupting the safety of our streets and the quiet of night with needless drag racing. Is vehicle confiscation an equitable solution or an unnecessary hardship imposed on reckless youth? If confiscation isn't the answer, then what other solutions to stop this behavior might there be?
So it's a little bit of both, and chances are it's not going to be equitable because many people can't afford. I do pretty good. I can't afford for you to take my car though. the towing fees, if you have, but the other piece of that is we're responsible for the behavior of our children. We are responsible. And so if our children don't understand the risk that they put us in when we give them the keys to our car, then we have to deal with the consequences that come with that. And that was a hard ordinance for me to deal with. But the reality is, let one person die and this community will be outraged. And so we cannot wait for tragedy to happen. And so I'm hoping that this ordinance will cause people to ask themselves, and I don't know about you guys, I know my kids. I know what my kids might or might not do. I'm not blind to it. And so we have to know, you know the difference in your vehicle when it comes back. And so as a community, we have to hold people accountable. And unfortunately, the parent, if your child is driving your car, that means you're responsible. When you give them the key, the insurance company too. Nowadays with your insurance, if your kids are not on your insurance and something happens to your car, the insurance company is not doing anything about it. So this isn't something new, but if it's going to affect you negatively, we have to start making strong charges inside of our homes so that we can make sure that we're not one of the ones that are negatively impacted by that ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
This is one of those issues that has really, really been a struggle because I don't think the forfeiture of a car, I don't think it's equitable. I don't think it's the right thing to do. I don't think it's going to have the kind of impact that we think it's going to have because at the end of the day, people are going to keep drag racing. They're going to find another car to drag race, whether that's their cousin's car, whether they go to Enterprise and rent a car. People are already renting cars and doing this. It's going to keep happening. So what we need to do is think about the solutions to have this so people have something to do. They're going to keep drag racing. Why don't we build a drag race strip? Why don't we find something for people to go and do this? They're going to keep doing it whether or not you take their car. It doesn't matter how good of a parent you think you are or not. Kids are going to do what kids are going to do. I mean, that's at the end of the day. We all know that. So we need to make sure that people have safe options because we don't want anybody to get hurt. In the short term, we need to make sure, though, that we are enforcing this by slapping a big fine on somebody or making sure that they're aware of what's going on. We need to improve our traffic camera system so that we know which cars are doing it. So even if we don't have a police officer there within 3 minutes of this happening or it being called in, we show up at their door the next day and say, hey, guess what? We caught you. Because we need to make sure that our community is safe, and we need to make sure that there's a safe outlet and a legal outlet for things that people are already going to keep doing.
Okay, thank you. Rising homicides in the ward and throughout the city are an overwhelming concern. There has been advocacy for a portion of federal ARPA dollars to be used to enhance public safety by use of high-tech surveillance, including camera installation at strategic locations. Other tools suggested to assist with crime deterrence include the funding of residential doorbell camera security devices and making upgrades to street and home lighting. Considering the city is significantly short on officers and all options should be explored, would you consider the use of unmanned aerial vehicles or drones to be an acceptable surveillance tool for police use, despite the privacy issues that surround them?
I know at the county level they already have some people who are droned, so a little bit of drone certified. So a little background on that: in order to have anybody controlling any kind of drone or anything like that, they have to be FAA certified. So they have to go through that specific training so that they are more aware of those privacy things. We know that there's not going to be every single protection regarding privacy, but I think that it's definitely an option because, again, we have to be creative in the options that we explore, and I don't necessarily think that a helicopter is the best option for a city of 82,000 people. I think that we should have gone in the direction of drones to begin with and updating different, preventative measures, like you mentioned, the doorbells, the street lights, everything like that. If we can be as preventative in nature regarding crime as possible, that's always going to be better than being the reactive side to crime as possible. So I am all for utilizing any kind of dollars, wherever they come from, to make sure that we are utilizing those preventative measures to deter crime and homicides in our community.
Ms. Galloway.
I think the key word for me, or key line, was, I think you said, in spite of privacy issues. Was that correct?
Despite the
Despite.
privacy issues.
Yeah. So I don't think that we should do anything despite privacy issues. And the reason why I say that is we have to vet what are the privacy issues and who are the people that are responsible for those, operating those things. And will they be doing them in a way that ensures that they are only looking for things that are illegal? And so I believe that based on where we are in our society with the privacy issues, that we can't eliminate that piece. I am all for doing whatever we can to eliminate crime in our community, any way that we can make the community feel safe. But that privacy issue is a concern for me. We have a large population of elderly people, some that live alone. And so if we in fact try to do this in an effort to eliminate that, if it becomes worse, then we've been counterproductive. I don't know if I'm making sense, but I think that we must investigate what those privacy issues might be, eliminate them, put things in place to make sure that there is accountability and oversight, and then absolutely do it.
Okay, thank you. In an effort to help curb crime, Councilman Alan Griggs has recommended that an ordinance be put in place to close all liquor sales across the city of Flint at 9 p.m. Would you support this proposed ordinance? If not, why not?
I think I'm first.
Ms. Galloway.
So I think my question would be, are we just saying that liquor can't be sold after 9 o'clock, or closing the entire liquor store down at 9 o'clock? And I think that there are two pieces of that.
Well, the question is liquor sales.
Sales. So I would support that absolutely, as long as it didn't violate the state statute over liquor, absolutely, because in my opinion, if you haven't bought it by 9 o'clock, then you probably didn't need it. And so, yes, I would absolutely support that as long as it was not detrimental to the store. And one of the things I just want to add to that, we have to make sure that we're not hurting our business owners in our efforts to be zealous, because recently we had a business owner that was actually a resolution before us to send a resolution to the state of Michigan pulling his liquor license. And he was portrayed as someone that was uncooperative, only to be invited to the city council meeting. And not only had he been cooperative, but he had been beat up by people that were at his store. But in addition to that, he was one of the first business owners to accept the cameras that had been in place under Chief Johnson. So we just want to make sure that we're being fair to all of our business owners. And yes, I would support that if that did come before us and it wasn't a violation of the state law.
Okay, thank you.
I would not support the ordinance ending at 9 o'clock. I think that we need to remember that we all live different lives. We all live a little bit of unconventional lives. Not everybody works a 9 to 5, so making sure that people who work on third shift are able to get, or second shift, are able to get, maybe their after dinner cocktail. I mean, we don't know what everybody's situation is. I do believe that we should limit the number of liquor license and the number of times with the liquor sales to ending at midnight, though, and making sure that the number of liquor licenses in the city does not continue to grow. There are studies, and I know for sure in Pennsylvania, I believe there's also one in Michigan as well, that talk about the reduction in teenage crime, especially when teenage and young adult crime, when liquor licenses are limited within certain areas as well. And if that is another way to prevent crime from happening, I am all for that. But I also want to make sure that we are supporting our community members who may have unconventional work schedules, and also our business owners, and making sure that they are able to continue their entrepreneurial spirit.
Okay, thank you. Environmental racism is a well-known part of this country's history and also of this city's history. Please explain your position in favor of or in opposition to the proposed construction of the Ajax asphalt plant to be built at the northeast point of Carpenter Road and in near proximity to public housing.
Yeah, it should absolutely not be built 1,100 feet from a public housing project on the north side of Flint. That is completely unacceptable, especially because the way that the testing that was done by Eagle, which is former DEQ, did not account for a lot of different kinds of chemicals that will be getting spewed out of this permit, or excuse me, out of this asphalt plant, including something called hexavalent chromium. I don't know if any of you guys have seen Aaron Brockovich, but that whole movie is all about the destruction of hexavalent chromium on a town. Flint does not need any more kind of environmental destruction in anywhere within its air, water, soil, anything, period.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Callaway.
No, I don't support it, but I will say that the wonderful thing about it is it was a humanity thing. And so when you saw people that were out there protesting that project, it reflected community, not just those that lived in that area. And so that was very encouraging.
Okay, thank you. In an effort to keep 7th Ward residents up to date regarding city services, special programs, public safety, residents have requested regular and frequent communication from our council representative. If elected, by what means and how often will you communicate with or meet with your constituency?
So one of the things that I am going to do is I am going to start a Tuesday table talk, and I'm going to get on Facebook. I am. The other thing is I already meet with the block clubs, and I want to thank Janetta for re-engaging our Evergreen Valley and Estates, and Norma for always inviting me to their neighborhood association, Mike Keeler. But yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And then also I do spend quite a bit of time with our seniors over in on Court Street. And so, but yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to step out of my comfort zone and have a Tuesday table talk with Councilwoman Galloway.
Okay, thank you.
And quarterly meetings, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Quarterly meetings.
Ms. Huckenroder.
Yeah, so I'm really excited and proud to say that we were able throughout the last month to be able to go to each precinct within the 7th Ward and do a community come together event where we were able to engage in different ways and learn about the topics that matter most to the community, because it doesn't matter what I think is the most important, it matters what the community thinks is the most important. Got some really, really good ideas from a lot of different community members and excited to help implement those ideas as well. But being able to maintain contact with people on a regular basis, whether that be through email, phone call. I get Facebook messages all the time, posting about important things that are happening in our city and that affect us on Facebook, on a website, on whatever form of method of communication. We need to make sure that we're meeting people where they are for whatever method of communication that may be. One of the things that I also really want to look into is the possibility of robocalls or texts if there's something in particular happening in a certain portion of the ward that's going to affect a neighborhood regarding, I don't know, let's say the 16th water main break on Court Street this year. So making sure that we're able to communicate to a wide group of people in a very quick way. There's resources out there and being able to utilize everything that we possibly can to engage everyone.
Okay. Over the recent years, participation in block clubs and neighborhood associations have diminished significantly within the 7th Ward. Do you have any suggestions that might help increase residents' participation in these important clubs and associations? Ms. Hergenwater.
Yeah, I think having really strong engagement, not only within the different block clubs, but also within Flint Neighborhoods United, so that everybody knows where to go and when to go and everything like that. And I know that COVID threw everything because so many platforms switched to that virtual platform, but we need to make sure that that's still accessible. So engaging whatever kind of social media, website, I don't know, a lot of people use Twitter, I don't, but text messages, I know yard signs are used a lot too, but making sure that people understand the importance of what block clubs can do and their role within community, because I don't think a lot of people realize how important block clubs are to getting things done, especially within their own individual neighborhood. So I think it would be really cool if we did like welcome committees for people who moved into the ward. Hey, did you know trash day is this? This is all the guidelines from the trash contractor, X, Y, and Z, and just kind of having something already put together, just like a ward or a neighborhood how-to manual, or when things are FAQ manual, so that people know where to go. Because sometimes it can be overwhelming if you're not sure who to go to and who to turn to, and maybe you just show up on the right person's door one day, but making sure that we're doing our due diligence and reaching out to especially our newcomers.
Thank you. Marijuana sales are legal in the state of Michigan.
I don't think
As a result,
I don't think I
related
answered
businesses are popping
I
up.
didn't answer that.
Pardon me?
I didn't
Oh,
answer
you
the
didn't?
question.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
That's okay. One of the things I really believe is the residents that are engaged are the best billboards. And so even having a Saturday, where you go and you knock on the door and you talk to your neighbors and you tell them, hey, we're part of the block club, and tell them what the block club does. Because people want to know that there's value in being a part of it. What does it look like? Am I going to be called by somebody? And if dues are a barrier, I'm really grateful in our block club. We have a dollar amount, but it'll be donations too, because it's not about that. Those things are for administrative things, but we just want you to be engaged. We want you to know that there are people there. And so letting them know, getting to know your neighbors, because block clubs are about getting to know each other so that you can watch out for each other, know what's going on in the community, be able to communicate. And so I think the best way to build that engagement is each person making sure that they're taking part in recruiting other residents in the neighborhood.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Marijuana sales are legal in the state of Michigan. As a result, related businesses are popping up all over the place, including the 7th Ward. Can you speak to the limit of facilities allowable within our ward, the city, or other defined areas? And if there are no limits, should there be?
So I am so sad to say I thought we had a limit, and just recently I learned that we don't have a limit. Yes, I believe that there should be a limit. And the reason why there should be a limit is because you need to look at population, but you also need to look at where they are stationed. The community is changing. The 7th Ward at one time, if I'm not mistaken, we had the most. And that became very alarming for us. And so yes, we do need to look at, reevaluate what that looks like, how many we have, and yes, there should be a limit. And there definitely should be a limit in wards, to me, making sure that there is equity in that if the residents of the city of Flint want it.
I think there should be a limit too. I think it should be regulated just like liquor sales as well, where there's a certain limit and a certain process as far as the way in which that licensing process occurs too, but also making sure that we hold dispensaries accountable for, there's a provision in the licensing process that there's a certain portion of their, I don't remember if it's their sales or their yearly anticipated revenue, where they're required to give back to community, and we need to make sure that that aspect of things is continuing to happen for sure. I think that there, like I said, there needs to be that limit within the ward. I think that there needs to be a limit within a geographical region within that, whether that's a 20-mile radius, there can only be 1 or 2, or whatever that might look like. But again, it doesn't matter what I think, it matters what the community thinks and how we can move forward together to find a compromise or what have you, to make sure that everybody's opinion is represented as best as possible.
Thank you. Have you accepted campaign donations or endorsement from any owner or owners of a marijuana-based business or business interest?
No.
Okay, thank you. At present, the administration's Blight Department is understaffed and overwhelmed, and incapable of effectively addressing blight properties. What can council do, if anything, to assist wards with potentially identifying and obtaining grant dollars to address both blight and beautification projects?
So there is a beautification grant that happens through the land bank. There are grants available through the city of Flint. The city council does not oversee the grant process. So that is done through the administration. There's a list of all the block grants dollars that are given out. And so I just want to make sure that residents know that that's not the role of City Council. City Council is responsible for seeing how the block grants are allocated, ensuring that there is fairness in that process, making sure that there are no gifts, if you will. So vetting that process, but in helping residents to engage in how to get block grants or grants for beautification and blight. We have dollars for blight. We have a budget for blight. And then also, like I said, leveraging what the county has since they're over the land bank. But we wouldn't guide you into where you can find grant dollars.
Okay, thank you.
I think one of the things that we can do a lot better is making sure that people know where to go for different resources, especially if they want to host a cleanup. I know a lot of people don't know about the tools from Keep Genesee County Beautiful and the fact that they will give you gloves, grabbers, whatever kind of tools you need, trash bags, yard bags, things of that nature for free. All you got to do is fill out how many bags of trash you did and how many people came. A lot of people don't know about that, so we need to make sure that we're a lot better at sharing the resources that we have within community so that people have a place to start. Because there is a lot of money, especially within the blight elimination aspect of things within the city. A lot of people just don't know where to start. So being able to be a sounding board for whatever those resources may be, and then also being able to have a transparent process as far as the scoring of different grants and why some grants were granted and why others were not, making sure that that is accessible to community.
Thank you. A proposal has been made to relocate district courthouses and county offices located in downtown Flint to a closed GM building in Grand Blanc. In addition to creating vacancies, what direct impact would a move like this have on the City of Flint's revenue and on its residents? Ms.
So I'm thinking of parking meters. I'm thinking of tax revenue, because if you work in the city of Flint, 0.5%, even if you don't live in the city of Flint, 0.5% of your income goes to the city. I'm thinking of the long-term impacts of what is going to happen with, you said the jail was included in that too, correct? Yes. With the jail, with the courthouses, because I mean, they're beautiful, not the jail, but the courthouse is a beautiful building. What's going to happen with that? Is that just going to remain vacant? Is that going to be an eyesore to welcome you to downtown? Hi, welcome to Flint, here's this vacant building. We need to make sure that we figure out what are the true long-term impacts of doing something like this just to fill in another building in a town, 10 miles south. So I would definitely need to be able to look more at the proposal and that language and be able to ask more questions, especially within the long-term side of things with that. But based off of the information just shared, I would not support that.
Okay. Ms. Galloway.
So in addition to what was shared, I couldn't help but think about accessibility, because if you move the courts, does that become a hindrance for the people that have to go there? People that struggle with mobility. Will it be accessible bus line? Because if you did say the courts,
yes,
too, right?
Yes.
So when people have to go to court, how is that their ability to get there? Because downtown Flint is near the transportation center, so people that may not have vehicles can get there, but also people that unfortunately, that visit their loved ones. What is the population of the inmates that are inside of the ones that we keep downtown? So in addition to all of those revenue things, what are the impact on people being able to get there? Is it going to create more of a hardship than not? And I don't know if that would affect jury pools. I don't know. And so, yeah, it would require more investigation to find out why they're considering something like that and what would the alternative be.
Okay. Allegations exist that there are council representatives who either are not or were not legal residents of the ward they represent prior to being elected. On the face of it appears unethical, if not illegal, considering council is compensated by taxpayers' dollars. Although it is the ward's responsibility to ensure that candidates are qualified to run in an election, this does not necessarily occur. Wards are also responsible for recalling illegal representatives, but that doesn't often occur. What authority does council have to investigate claims alleging illegal residency? And what action can council take to unseat illegal council members?
So council members have the ability to do hearings for cause, and we actually have the authority to remove according to the charter. The challenging thing with that, and I've been in Flint now for 26 years, that's a running theme in the community. People that don't live in the community that run specifically. And I think that the state has been very silent on it. And then the county has been very silent on it. And then the city clerk, according to some, has been very silent on it. And so the challenge, though, is when you have that person, if that person leans towards your voting record, it's not to your best interest to do what is in the best interest of the community. And what I mean by that is if that person is one of my five, having one of my five sometimes may be more important than really investigating whether or not that's true. And the other piece is, we can say it however we want to. When you have a husband and a wife that are clearly in great relationship with each other, saying that they live within 2 to 3 miles of each other, it's just alarming. If it's not illegal, it definitely has the perception of something that appears to be unethical. And so we do have the authority to do it. It's just that it may not be to the benefit of the council members as much as it would be beneficial to the ward that person serves in.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there should be a full validation of any kind of, investigation of any kind of claim that comes forth, questioning the validity of someone's home address, 1,000%, because we need to make sure that we are following within the charter law and making sure that we are representing the community which we say that we are here to represent. So I'm not entirely sure what the specific provisions of City Council would be able to have for that, but wholeheartedly supporting the investigation and the confirmation of residents living where they say they live.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. You all have been a wonderful audience. This concludes the Q&A portion of our forum. I'd like to thank Councilwoman Galloway and Ms. Herkenroder. I'm sorry. I'm just really getting ahead of myself. Okay, but before we move to the final portion, there is one final question. Finally, what do you believe makes you the best person to represent the residents of the 7th Ward in City Council?
That's me, right?
Yes.
I'm here today before everyone because I'm so excited and so ready to get down and do the work that needs to get done. I want to make sure that we are able to work together and come together as a community, whatever our differences and opinions may be, and make sure that we are still getting work done. We need to make sure that we are working for the city. We need to make sure that we're working for the community, and that's what I'm here to do. I'm not afraid of a challenge. I'm not afraid to put in the long hours, to put in the 7-day weeks, to make sure that we get done what needs to get done, because Flint deserves better than what it has. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Galloway.
So, I am qualified. I am ready. I am prepared and have served this community for the last 8 years. This is not a time for risk. Since 2001, this community has lost over $100 million in revenue sharing spending. That means that the state of Michigan, instead of properly balancing their budget, they took $100 million just from this community, $1 billion from Detroit, but $100 million from this community since 2001. So now we have $94 million that will help to eliminate some of the challenges that we've had. And so why am I the most qualified? And I just want to make sure the narrative is not set by others. I am passionate. I am experienced. City Council gets everything done. It takes a little longer than we'd like to, but there's nothing that hasn't been done. And it's important to remember, and I hope my community sees, because of your trust and your investment in me, I've had the opportunity to be elected to be the president of the Michigan Municipal League. That is Michigan legislators throughout the entire state of Michigan that give us access to other resources and other people to help us advance where we're going. And so I'm asking this community to make sure that on November 2nd, you are not misled. Are there some changes that need to happen on the city council? Maybe so. What's not supposed to change on city council is your representation. So on November 2nd, I am hoping that we will continue the progress that we made, and on November 2nd, you will re-elect Monica Galloway for 7th Ward City Council.
Okay, thank you, thank you. This concludes the Q&A portion of our forum. Thank you, Councilman Galloway and Ms. Herkenroder. I'm now going to turn over the mic to Jan Marie.
Thank you, everybody. Do we have two outstanding candidates in our ward, or what? We are so fortunate to have such dynamic, intelligent people representing the 7th Ward. Thank you, ladies, for your forthright answers. Thank you for your preparation. Thank you for being able to respond on your feet. Thank you for being here to listen, to learn, and to be prepared to vote. I encourage all of you on November 2nd, get out and vote. Call your family, call your friends, pick them up if you need to, take them to the polls to vote. All right, now, just for a moment, we're going to meet a write-in candidate. That's an unusual thing in our area. It's an unusual thing in our city, right? But we have a number of write-in candidates for City Council this year. Lakeisha Terode, if you would please come to the mic. Lakeisha is going to be afforded 2 minutes. Our timekeeper, Ms. Turner, will let you know how things are going.
Thank you, Ms. Jan Marie. I really sincerely thank her, because the write-in candidates, unfortunately, have not been given a platform. It's a form, actually, of voter suppression. So anyone who extends the microphone to me as the 7th Ward write-in candidate, I definitely appreciate, and I applaud you for giving the voters an equal opportunity. Unfortunately, you all are not able to ask questions of myself because I only have a few minutes. But I can tell you a little bit about myself. I am born and raised here in the city of Flint. I have a passion for this city. I've been currently working in the community with law enforcement. I've been working in the community with mental health. I'm a mental health advocate first and foremost, and I own and operate facilities here in the city of Flint because I don't believe we can address crime without addressing the mind. So I'm hoping you all will look up all the candidates to get a fair shot of getting the best representation here in the 7th Ward in the city of Flint that you can have, because right now for the next 5 years, with everything that's happened to us in the city of Flint, we need someone to finally represent the community and allow the people's voices to be heard, instead of people coming in there with their own agenda and their own plans. Let's allow the people voice to speak. So I thank you all for listening to me for these few minutes. My name once again is Lakeisha Turo. I am the write-in candidate for the 7th Ward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Turo. Thank you so much. In case you don't know, as it regards write-in candidates, there will be a forum on Thursday evening at the Hasselbring Center between 6 and 8 p.m. So I invite you, if your schedule permits and you're interested, please show up, take a listen, get to know who else is running for office. Now, I would truly be remiss if I did not acknowledge that a dear friend to the 7th Ward and a warrior for the people of the city of Flint is here with us tonight. 1st Ward Councilman Eric Mays. Mr. Mays, thank you so much for being here this evening. Thank you. Also in the house tonight is a candidate for 8th Ward Council seat, Mr. Dennis Pfeiffer. Thank you, Dennis, for being here. Remember that name, Dennis Pfeiffer. These are a lot of new people for us, everyone. Please do your due diligence. Is Mr. A.C. Dumas in the house? Oh, Mr. A.C. Dumas, thank you. Mr. A.C. Dumas is here with us. Mr. Dumas is running for 3rd Ward Council. Again, everyone, we are so happy. Mr. Dumas, Mr. Pfeiffer, Councilman Mays, thank you for being here. And if I have overlooked any other candidates, I apologize. Yep. Did I miss? Is that Miss Muhammad? Mm-hmm. Miss Muhammad is in the house.
Audrey Young.
Okay, Audrey. Okay, what's your on the ballot? What's your name?
Audrey Young. I'm in the 2nd Ward, and I just want to correct you on the forum is at 4 o'clock.
Thank you. Thank you. 4 p.m. Is it from 4 until 6? Thank you so kindly. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, everybody. Last words. Vote. Call your friends, call your family, vote. This is an extremely important election. We need your participation. We need everyone's participation. We want to reinvigorate our city. We want more people to feel as much passion as you do, as our candidates do. So please, let's get the word out. And that, everyone, concludes our forum. Thank you so kindly for coming out. Drive safely. Have a great night. And we'll see you another time. Thank you, everybody. You did a great job.